and we were talking about the UN. What is their power, actually? What could they be doing that they're not doing?
Well, the UN has an enormous problem because, of course, you have the 5 permanent members on the Security Council that can veto. And as we know, anything that is done today, Russia will veto it. So it's non-existent as such, because if you want something against one of these powers, it's one of those countries will naturally veto it. There is another body. There are many bodies within the United Nations.
Well, it's ridiculous that they can start a war and basically no one can cry foul. No one can issue them with a yellow or red card. I mean, it just sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the main problems of the United Nations. There are dozens and dozens of problems. The other reason, or the other main problem at this point is the human rights. United Nations Human Rights Council, which of course Russia is on that council. Now they can be kicked off. It's going to be very, very difficult, but again, it's not going to make too much difference. So this is one of the big problems when the United Nations was set up, that you have these 5 permanent members, and you have these members who, when they wish to, will veto something. And it's also one of the problems why it's very difficult, because of the United Nations is international law. It's very difficult to actually get the official confirmation from the international law body that is allowing you, for example, to go to war in Iraq or Afghanistan, because you'll always have a country that will go against that and veto it. So the question is, do you go to war because you think that it is protecting you, it's defending your own country, or do you just sit around and allow an aggressor to move along? I mean, one of the problems with Russia is that it does have a history of committing some crimes. I'm going to use the word atrocities. We look back in Georgia in 2008. This is when the Russian Air Force completely obliterated some towns and villages. In Grozny in 2000. If you look back in Syria in the various periods of time over the last 10 years, I say the Soviet Union. This is tactics of the original Soviet Union. But of course, it's the Russian Federation today. The Russians pretty much control 2/3 of Syria. Bashar al-Assad is in power because of Russia, because of Putin, and yet they completely obliterated towns and villages. In some cases, the enemy was no longer there. But Putin simply wanted to send a message.
James, we're hearing that the police chiefs that have gone into the areas like Bucha have recorded 1,200 supposed war crimes at this stage. Do you think then a Nuremberg-type trial would be the obvious solution to this, given, as we're seeing, the United Nations really not looking good in this current light?
I can't see you getting that, Isabel. It's not going to happen. I mean, the reason why the Nuremberg trial happened in 1945, 1946 and onwards is because Germany was defeated, Allies went in, they managed to capture some of those key Nazis that were responsible for that the massive crime, and millions of Jews, of course, being killed and many other people being killed, and they were held in prison. You're not going to capture Putin. You're not going to capture some of his generals. Russia is not going to fall. I cannot see this happening. Even those who are presenting the evidence and collecting the evidence are saying it's going to be very challenging. It's going to be very difficult to get this person to The Hague. And plus, you have to remember as well, there are a number of countries in the world, including the United States, the Soviets, and I believe Britain as well, that is not a signatory to the ICC, the International Criminal Court in The Hague. So it's going to be very challenging, to say the least.
Okay.
James Marlow, we'll leave it there. James is a foreign affairs analyst. Very interesting to hear your take. Thank you very much indeed.